I've often heard people say that New York City is the loneliest place in the world, that the sheer scale of it, the endless crush of bodies on the sidewalks, can make you feel invisible. At night, when the skyscrapers cast neon reflections across rain-washed streets, you can almost believe you're wandering through an otherworldly realm, something out of a film noir. I used to find comfort in that anonymity, savoring the notion that anything could happen at any moment, and maybe no one would notice, except me. But on one particular night, high above Tribeca on a glossy rooftop dotted with fairy lights, my entire world changed. It wasn't gradual, like a slow fade from black to color. It was sudden, electrifying, and I could practically feel the foundations of my life shift beneath my feet. It all started with her, Harper, and the soft press of her lips near my ear as she whispered words that would send shockwaves through my carefully managed reality. Below is that story. It's long, almost too long, but I want you to hear every nuance and feel every heartbeat. My hope is that by the end of it, you'll understand why some secrets are impossible to keep under wraps, no matter how diligently we try. And maybe, just maybe, you'll find the courage within yourself to stop pretending too. The invitation landed on my desk at the fashion magazine where I worked. A heavy paper stock with gold leaf along the edges, the kind that screams wealth and exclusivity. My editor, Grace, dropped it onto my keyboard with a pointed smile. "Your presence is mandatory," she said, crossing her arms. "We need coverage of the autumn fashion lineup. Designers, stylists, celebs, everyone will be there. It's prime content for next month's issue." I stared down at the invitation. A rooftop soiree in Tribeca, courtesy of some high-profile collaborator. Expensive cocktails, DJ sets, a swirl of extravagance. Ordinarily, an event like that would thrill me, the chance to mingle, to witness fashion's newest muses in real time. But that night, I was exhausted, weighed down by a week of deadlines and the city's ceaseless pace. Still, I had no choice. Journalism, even in the glamorous realm of fashion, rarely allows you to choose your hours. Showing up was part of the job, a tacit promise to network, to glean new leads for stories, and to keep my byline relevant. So, a few hours later, I found myself stepping out of a taxi in front of a sleek high-rise. The building soared so high I could hardly see its apex from the sidewalk, and the doorman ushered me inside with a polite smile, directing me toward the penthouse elevator that would carry me up to the rooftop. As the elevator ascended, I felt a flutter of nerves in my stomach. I was used to covering parties, but something about that night set me on edge. Maybe it was the knowledge that everyone would be there, from influential bloggers to reclusive designers. Maybe it was the heaviness of the Manhattan heat clinging to my skin. Whatever it was, I breathed deeply, reminding myself that I belonged here, that I had earned my seat at the table. And then the door slid open to reveal a breathtaking sight, a panoramic view of the city at twilight. The rooftop was framed by glass panels, reflecting the pinks and purples of the sky in a dazzling show of color. Fairy lights wound around potted trees, and a constellation of candles flickered on tall cocktail tables. The music was sleek and modern, pulsing just beneath the hum of chatter. My job for the night, to mingle, observe, and maybe snag a few quotes from any big names I spotted. I recognized the usual suspects: publicists, stylists, models wearing the season's new silhouettes. The laughter that filled the air sounded too bright, too staged. People guffawed at each other's jokes, hugging air as though they were best friends. I'd become jaded enough to know it was mostly for show. I grabbed a flute of champagne from a passing server, swirling the bubbly around its narrow rim. The city below glittered, a patchwork of headlights and street lamps, like a living organism breathing under a blanket of neon. In that moment, I felt a pang of isolation. Here I was, surrounded by the flashiest people in New York, all jostling to be seen, yet the effect was ironically hollow. I didn't realize how desperately I craved something genuine until I saw her. I hadn't seen Harper in months, maybe even a year. We had a history that was anything but simple, a trail of half-baked confessions and charged silences that neither of us ever fully acknowledged. She was the daughter of a senator, someone whose name was plastered across newspapers and political websites on a near-daily basis. If that conjures an image of a prim, conservative upbringing, dismiss it at once. Harper was a swirl of chaos and spark, the rebel child who never quite bowed to her father's strict mold. And there she was, leaning against the edge of the rooftop, her dark hair falling around her shoulders, wearing a fitted black dress that showcased the quiet confidence I'd always admired. In her hand, a champagne flute glinted, But she wasn't drinking. She was watching me. My heart lurched. She shouldn't have been there. She didn't work in fashion, and she wasn't known for philanthropic appearances. Yet something in her gaze said she had come with purpose, and that purpose involved me. I tried to ignore it at first. After all, our whatever we had was something we'd both walked away from. If she was there by sheer coincidence, fine. I'd keep my distance, say a polite hello if forced, and slip out of the party as soon as I had enough material for my article. But ignoring Harper was like trying to ignore a supernova in your peripheral vision. Her presence lit up the space, commanding attention without making a sound. It was only a matter of minutes before she gracefully parted from the small cluster of people near her and glided across the floor, coming to stand at my side. "Olivia," she said softly, her voice a husky drawl. "Long time." A jolt traveled from my stomach to my throat. I forced a polite smile, mindful of the eyes that might be on us, though the crowd seemed too preoccupied with their own dramas to care. "Harper," I managed, hoping my tone sounded casual. "What a surprise." She quirked an eyebrow, taking a sip of champagne. "Is it? I figured you might be here. Write-ups on fashion events, right?" I turned away slightly, letting my gaze wander over the city lights to avoid the intensity of her stare. "That's my job." A slow laugh left her lips. "You look well." I fought the urge to snap back with something sarcastic, something to drive her away, because I was lying if I said seeing her again didn't twist my heart. Instead, I offered a minimal nod. "So do you." Her laugh deepened. "Still lying as smoothly as ever, I see?" I shot her a glare, but my resolve faltered under the softness in her dark eyes. She stepped closer, and that was when the hush of her voice brushed my ear, the barest whisper that sparked every nerve in my body. "Olivia, I have a secret. I should have walked away, should have feigned a phone call or abruptly remembered a deadline, but something in me needed to know what she had to say. That impulse had always drawn me to her, from the moment we first met. Harper was dangerous in the way a flame is dangerous to a moth, and I had never quite managed to resist. My breath caught. "Harper, don't." But it was too late. She leaned in, lips grazing my earlobe as she whispered the words that would change everything. Her voice was low, measured, but I caught every syllable as though she'd shouted, "I'm in love with you." I froze, forgetting how to breathe. I heard the muffled beats of the music around us, the chinking of champagne glasses, but it all faded into static. My mind spun, grappling with the meaning of her confession. It seemed impossible. Harper, the drifting comet, the daughter of a powerful senator, proclaiming love, a word I'd never quite heard from her lips in relation to me. We had a complicated history, near misses, unspoken tension, fleeting moments of closeness that fizzled out whenever things got too real. I felt a wave of contradictory emotions, disbelief, longing, anger. Part of me wanted to cling to her, to bury my face in her hair and confess how many nights I'd lain awake thinking of her. The other part of me wanted to run, to hide from a reality that felt overwhelming. Finally, I found my voice, which sounded fragile even to my own ears. "What did you say?" She smiled, a sad, almost regretful smile. "You heard me." I swallowed hard, adrenaline surging. No, that doesn't make sense. This can't be real. You don't." Harper let out a soft sigh, stepping back just enough to meet my gaze fully. "Olivia, I've never been more serious in my life." I could feel the thrumming tension in the air between us, thick as fog. A swirl of conflicting thoughts crashed through my mind. If she truly loved me, why wait until now? Why show up at a party with half of Manhattan's fashion scene in attendance? Risking a scene we might not be able to contain? I opened my mouth to speak, but no coherent words emerged. My chest felt tight, as though I was inhaling the city's entire humidity in a single breath. Harper's eyes flicked around, noting the onlookers. "Come on," she murmured. "Let's find somewhere quieter." I tried to protest, but she tugged at my hand. Instead of letting her guide me away, I yanked back. "I need a drink," I forced out. She looked surprised but nodded. "All right." I turned seas, weaving through the crowd of partygoers until I reached the open bar. My hand shook as I placed the flute of champagne on the counter, the bubbles fizzing audibly. The bartender looked at me expectantly, and I asked for a simple gin and tonic, hoping to steady my nerves. Before I could slip away with my glass, Harper's grip closed around my wrist, gentle but insistent. "If you leave now, you'll never know," she said, her eyes searching mine. "You'll never know what we could be." Her words sank into me like a stone in water. Part of me wanted to scold her for the melodrama, but the bigger part, the part that still ached with longing, found itself unable to walk away. So I stood there, heart pounding, letting the night swirl around us. I didn't realize it then, but that was the exact moment I sealed my fate. To understand the weight of Harper's confession, you'd have to know the rocky path we'd tread for years. We first met through an offhand introduction at a political fundraiser I'd been assigned to cover. I was in the early days of my reporting career, writing about lifestyle and society events, and my editor insisted I get a quote from the senator's elusive daughter. I found her leaning against a marble pillar, swirling a glass of whiskey. Whiskey, not champagne, which immediately intrigued me. She wore a dark suit rather than a gown, standing out among the glittering dresses and tuxedos. When I approached, she watched me with a mischievous glint in her eyes, as though she was daring me to ask something foolish. "What do you think of this charity event?" I remember saying, trying to break the ice. She smirked. "I think it's a bunch of wealthy people patting themselves on the back. But hey, I'm just the senator's daughter." Her bluntness startled me, but I couldn't help laughing. That was Harper. Bold, unfiltered, never quite playing by the rules. By the end of the night, we'd spent an hour talking about everything but the fundraiser. Books, travel, the little quirks of city life. She gave me a glimpse of a soul that seemed bigger than the gilded cage of her father's political world. Over the next few months, we crossed paths again and again, usually at events. Each time, the tension grew. A shared glance here, an inside joke there. We skirted the line between friendship and something more intimate, but we never fully crossed it. Maybe I was too scared. Maybe she was. We parted ways eventually, drifting into our separate orbits. She had family obligations, and I had career ambitions. Our near collision felt like a passing meteor. Intense, bright, and heartbreakingly brief. Until that night on the Tribeca rooftop, when she shattered the unspoken rule we'd both observed. Don't speak the truth of what we could be. Back in the present, I stared at my gin and tonic, swirling the ice cubes absently. Harper was at my side, exuding that same quiet aura that had drawn me to her from the beginning. My mind ran wild with questions. Why now? What changed? What does she expect from me? "Olivia," she said softly, leaning in so our conversation remained private. "Can we please go somewhere quieter?" I hesitated, glancing around at the watchers. People recognized Harper. The senator's daughter was a public figure, frequently splashed on gossip sites for her rebellious streak. I saw a few curious gazes land on us, but none lingered too long. Finally, I nodded. "There's a terrace on the opposite side. The event organizers mentioned it was for staff taking smoke breaks or something. It might be less crowded." She nodded in agreement. "Lead the way." We wound through the throng, the music throbbing against my eardrums. A few acquaintances tried to flag me down for small talk, but I muttered apologies, forging ahead until we found a narrow corridor leading to a discreet door. Beyond that door was a smaller balcony with high railings and only a handful of people stepping out for quick cigarettes. They barely glanced at us as we slipped into a quieter corner. From this vantage point, I could see the city spread below. Towering buildings, amber streetlights, the constant motion of taxis. It should have been calming, but every cell in my body was on alert, attuned to Harper's presence at my side. She rested her elbows on the railing, gazing at the vista. "This city," she murmured, "it can make you feel so insignificant and so invincible at the same time." I joined her, letting the breeze cool my skin. "You always said you loved New York at night. You told me once it's when you feel most alive." She smiled at the memory. "I guess that's still true." Silence fell. I couldn't bear it any longer, so I turned to her, my voice shaking slightly. "Harper, why did you say what you did inside? Why now?" She sighed, turning to face me fully. "I suppose because I've spent too long not saying it. I'm not good at these things. My life is complicated, and I've always chosen the easy way out. Distraction, partying, the next big thrill." She paused, eyes flickering with emotion, but none of it compared to how I feel around you. I got tired of lying to myself. My throat felt tight. "But you can't just drop this bomb on me in the middle of a crowded rooftop and expect me to know what to do. We always had this tension, but you were the one who walked away." She closed her eyes briefly, regret tensing her jaw. "I know. I'm sorry. At the time, it felt like I was protecting both of us from the inevitable spotlight. The gossip. My father's career is, well, you know." "Yeah, I murmured, remembering how the senator's public image overshadowed every aspect of Harper's life. She reached out, brushing her fingers against mine in a ghost of a touch. But I couldn't stay away. Every time I saw your name in a byline, every time I heard you were covering some event, part of me wanted to be there, just to see you. A swirl of warmth and heartbreak filled me. For so long, I'd thought the spark between us was unrequited, something I'd conjured in my head. Now I realized the feeling had been mutual, just suppressed under 1,000 layers of fear. I lowered my gaze. I don't know if I can trust you. We parted ways once before, remember? She nodded, stepping closer. I remember. Her voice was quiet, earnest. And if you can't trust me, I get it. But I had to tell you the truth. Keeping it in was destroying me. I inhaled slowly, trying to calm the roiling emotions. Harper, your father, the press. If we do this, she shook her head, determination flaring in her eyes. I don't care. Let them talk. Her bold statement caught me off guard. And that was when she leaned in, her breath mingling with mine. My body went rigid with anticipation. Would I let this happen? Did I have the courage to face the fallout? My answer came instinctively, in the form of surrender. Her lips met mine in a tentative brush, so different from the confidence she usually projected. It was as though she was bracing for rejection. I froze for half a heartbeat before pressing back, a knot inside me unraveling all at once. It was a kiss of promise, of apology, of longing long denied. My mind spun with the realization, I wanted this, wanted her. Even with the specter of scandal looming, even with the dangers that came from her family name, I couldn't deny the fire that flared whenever we touched. A soft moan escaped my throat. She slid an arm around my waist, pulling me close. For a moment, we lost ourselves in the hush of the terrace, the stars flickering overhead. My heart hammered so loudly I was sure the entire city could hear it. Then, suddenly, a harsh flash burst against my eyelids. I jerked back, blinking, disoriented. A paparazzo, no, maybe just a random bystander with a phone, was standing a few yards away, camera raised, a triumphant grin on his face. Damn it, I hissed, stepping away from Harper. She turned, eyes flaring with irritation. Seriously? Click, another shot. My stomach dropped. One image might have been a coincidence, but the second was deliberate, malicious. The question now was what they intended to do with it. We scrambled back into the main area of the rooftop, pulses pounding. The music was still pumping, guests oblivious to the drama unfolding in that hidden corner. But Harper and I wore our tension like a second skin, glancing around as though expecting an ambush. She caught my hand. It might not be that big of a deal. Some random person took a photo. Maybe they're just a partygoer who got excited. I wanted to believe her, but the knot in my gut told me otherwise. You know that's not how it works, I murmured, recalling all the times the tabloids had pounced on far lesser rumors. If they recognized you, they'd know who your father is. This could be huge. Her face set in a determined mask. Let it be huge, then. At that moment, I realized what a hurricane Harper could be when she set her mind on something. She wasn't trembling, wasn't making excuses to run. In her stance, I saw a willingness to stand tall against the wave of scandal. It was thrilling, but also terrifying. Meanwhile, my phone began vibrating in my purse. I pulled it out and read the caller ID. Grace, my editor. Of course. My stomach clenched. She was probably seeing the first signs of chaos. Social media posts. Maybe a tweet from some unknown user. With trembling fingers, I hit ignore. Harper frowned. Who was it? My boss, I said, likely calling about, well, us. She exhaled slowly, a flicker of concern creasing her brow. We'll handle it. But how? My mind raced. If the gossip sites picked this up, I could be labeled unprofessional. My magazine would question my discretion at company events, and I could be pegged as chasing scandal. The glitz and glam of fashion journalism might appear carefree from the outside, but it was a precarious sphere, full of unspoken etiquette. And Harper, the senator's daughter, her entire life had been shaped by a father's public persona, by what the media said about her. She'd always played the rebellious role, but a public confirmation of a same-sex relationship could be bigger than just a rebellious phase. It could shift the narrative around her father's campaign, around her family. All these thoughts whirled around my head, and I felt lightheaded. Out of habit, I was about to pull away from Harper, to separate myself physically from the scandal incarnate. Then I glimpsed her expression, open, raw, unwavering. I couldn't abandon her, couldn't abandon us. So I laced my fingers through hers and squeezed. "Let's get out of here," I said, voice trembling with adrenaline. She smiled, relief softening her features. Agreed. We slipped out of the rooftop event with as much discretion as possible, ignoring the curious glances. A few people might have seen our entwined hands, but I was past caring. My heart hammered a tattoo against my ribs. On the street, we called for a car. My usual practice of waving down a taxi fell by the wayside in the flurry of nerves. While we waited, I turned to Harper, searching her face for a sign of regret. "Are you sure?" I asked quietly. "Once that picture gets out," she touched my cheek, an unexpected gesture of tenderness on a busy Manhattan curb. "I'm sure," she said simply. A black car arrived, the driver stepping out to open the door for us. We climbed into the back seat. The moment the door closed, an exhale left my lungs like I'd been holding it for hours. Harper settled beside me, clasping my hand between hers. Outside, the city lights blurred in streaks of neon as we pulled away. Neither of us spoke until we were halfway to my apartment. Then she asked, "Do you want me to come up with you?" I hesitated. Part of me yearned for the comfort of her closeness, but I also knew once we crossed certain lines, there would be no turning back. Still, my apartment felt lonely in the best of times, and I knew this was about to become the worst of times, with the potential scandal looming. "Please," I whispered, voice barely audible over the hum of the car's engine. She nodded, a faint smile tugging at her lips. I lived in a modest one-bedroom near the Lower East Side, on a street that was noisy by day and eerily quiet by midnight. By the time we got there, my phone showed it was well past 1 a.m. We entered the building, ascending rickety stairs that squeaked underfoot. Inside my apartment, the overhead light illuminated a small living space filled with stacks of books and half-finished article drafts. I tossed my keys on the kitchen counter, flicking the lamp on. Harper lingered by the doorway, her eyes traveling over the clutter. "I like it," she said softly. I barked a nervous laugh. "It's not exactly the polished world you're used to," she shrugged, stepping closer. "I'm not the polished world either, remember?" That was true. Despite her father's wealth and influence, Harper had always resisted the notion of living in pristine penthouses or manicured estates. She reveled in the city's grit, in the authenticity that existed beyond glamorous illusions. I was about to offer her a drink when my phone buzzed again. Another call from Grace. I stared at the screen, dread coiling in my stomach. "I should probably face the music," I muttered. Harper squeezed my arm. "Go ahead." Stepping into the adjacent bedroom for some privacy, I answered, keeping my voice low. "Grace? Hi." Her tone was clipped. "What is going on, Olivia? I'm getting frantic messages about you and—" She hesitated, as though not sure how to phrase it. "And the senator's daughter, kissing, in front of everyone. A photographer posted on Twitter. It's circulating." I closed my eyes, bracing myself. "Yes, it happened." She let out a heavy sigh. "Look, I don't care about your personal life, but the magazine's stance can't be compromised. People are already talking about conflict of interest, about sensationalism overshadowing the event coverage. We need to decide how to handle the press." My cheeks burned, equal parts shame and defiance. "I'm sorry if it reflects poorly on the magazine, but nothing," she cut in, though not unkindly. "It's your personal choice, yes. However, you need to be prepared for the blowback. We can't spin the story to your advantage if you don't talk to our PR rep. Are you free tomorrow to come in early?" My shoulders sagged. "Yes, I'll be there." She paused, softening slightly. "Look, I'm not telling you to do anything you're uncomfortable with. Just be careful. These things can escalate quickly." I thanked her and ended the call. When I returned to the living room, Harper was standing by the window, gazing down at the quiet street. She turned when she heard my footsteps, anxiety flickering across her features. "Bad?" she asked. I shrugged, feeling a lump in my throat. "Could be worse. The magazine isn't firing me, yet. But they're concerned." She nodded slowly. "I'm sorry." I moved to her side, gently placing a hand on her shoulder. "I'm not," I said quietly. Yeah, I'm terrified. But I don't regret it." Her eyes flitted to my lips, then back up. "Neither do I." We stood there for a moment, the city humming below. Finally, she slipped her arms around my waist, drawing me into a soft embrace. I laid my head against her shoulder, letting the pent-up tension seep out of me. Outside, The neon signs cast shifting patterns on the floor. In that small pocket of calm, I dared to believe that maybe this would be okay, that we could face the storm without being swept away. That hope wavered by dawn. I woke to a barrage of notifications on my phone, text messages, social media tags, emails. Harper was still asleep in my bed, her hair fanned across the pillow, her expression peaceful. I slipped out quietly, easing the bedroom door shut behind me so she wouldn't wake up. In the living room, I braced myself and opened Twitter. My feed was clogged with references to last night's party. Wait, the senator's daughter was spotted kissing a journalist at a Tribeca rooftop. Scandal. Pics? Or it didn't happen. Oh wait, we have pics. Somebody tell me who this journalist is. She's gorgeous. My face burned. I scrolled further, seeing the photo, Harper and me in that heated moment, arms around each other, the city lights behind us. It was undeniably intimate, a moment that was never meant for public consumption. The tweet had thousands of likes and retweets. The user who posted it was reveling in the attention. A couple of celebrity gossip sites had also run quick blurbs, focusing on Harper's father. Did the senator's rebellious daughter just come out as bisexual at a high-profile NYC event? Some highlighted me by name, linking to my articles at the magazine. My heart pounded as I read the speculation. Was this a relationship? A fling? A statement? Amid the swirl of coverage, my phone rang. I recognized the number as belonging to the magazine's PR manager, Catherine. I answered, steeling myself. "Olivia, thanks for picking up," she said briskly. "We need to craft a statement. The story's blowing up. Are you on your way to the office?" "Soon," I replied, glancing at the clock. It was barely 7 a.m. "Let me get ready." "I'll come in." "Great. Let's keep it short and factual for now, okay? No feeding the drama." She hung up, and I collapsed onto the couch, closing my eyes. My mind raced. How had my life taken such a sharp left turn in less than 12 hours? A soft click of the bedroom door made me look up. Harper appeared, wearing one of my oversized t-shirts and a pair of shorts. She rubbed her eyes, looking disoriented until she saw my expression. Concern flashed across her face. "What happened?" I handed her my phone, opened to the main gossip article. She read it, her brows knitting in a deep frown. "They're really going after us, aren't they?" I shrugged, trying to sound nonchalant. "It's not exactly a surprise." She set the phone aside, crossing the living room in a few strides. Kneeling in front of me, she took my hands in hers. "Olivia, we can handle this. It's going to be messy, but we'll get through it together." The sincerity in her gaze both comforted and unnerved me. For once in her life, she looked resolute, ready to fight for something beyond her usual rebellious antics. I squeezed her hands. "I have to go to work soon. They want me to talk to PR about how we're handling the coverage." She nodded, straightening up. "I should go home too. My father's probably already hearing about this. Maybe I can get ahead of it." I stood, moving closer so our bodies almost touched. "I'm sorry. This was never how I wanted it to come out, if it even needed to come out publicly at all." She cupped my cheek, her eyes gentle. "Don't be sorry. This might be messy, but it's real. That's worth something." Despite everything, a smile twitched at my lips. I leaned in, kissing her softly, letting her warmth anchor me. For a fleeting second, the chaos evaporated, and we were just two people who'd made a leap of faith. The day that followed felt surreal. At the magazine, I was whisked into conference rooms where PR reps, editors, and even the legal department asked questions about the photo and my relationship with Harper. Some seemed supportive, others concerned about public perception. I kept my answers honest but concise, determined not to cheapen our connection by turning it into a spectacle. Outside the office, paparazzi had gathered, calling my name, snapping pictures. My coworkers gawked. A few offered hushed words of encouragement, while others watched with thinly veiled curiosity. I managed to slip out a back entrance, avoiding most of the cameras. At home, I spent hours texting back and forth with Harper. She was facing a storm of her own. Her father's staff demanded clarifications, tabloids were camped outside her building, and even some old friends had popped up, eager to give interviews about her personal life. Yet every time we communicated, I sensed something unbreakable forging between us, like two people bracing against a gale. The question was, how long could we stand up to it before something cracked? News cycles move fast, but the interest in Harper's story didn't fade overnight. People were drawn to the salacious mix of politics, LGBTQ+ representation, and glamorous city life. My magazine decided not to punish me, mostly because the attention had ironically boosted our site's traffic. Grace, my editor, was pragmatic. If we play this carefully, it can be a non-issue. Just focus on your job, keep delivering good work, and don't feed the drama. So I did. But internally, I was grappling with the new normal. Harper and I were no longer a private near flame, something we could choose to ignore or keep hidden. We'd been shoved into the spotlight, forced to decide if we would stand by each other's side. Then, on a Friday evening, Harper texted me, "I want to see you, publicly. Let them watch if they want." My heart jolted. A public date. The paparazzi would swarm, but a part of me was done hiding, done pretending. So I replied, "Where?" She suggested a well-known restaurant in the West Village, a place with a cozy, intimate vibe, but enough notability that paparazzi regularly staked it out. I realized she was making a statement. If we go here, it'll be clear we're not ashamed. That night, I dressed in a simple black dress, my nerves on edge. Outside the restaurant, flashes lit up the sidewalk. I swallowed hard. Then Harper stepped out of a car, radiant in a fitted navy suit. She offered me her hand. I took it. Cameras clicked, shutters whirred, and curious onlookers parted as we walked inside. It was surreal, like a scene from a movie. But once we were seated, the din of conversation in the restaurant replaced the flashing cameras, and it felt almost normal. We sipped wine, exchanged small talk about our days, and found moments to smile at the absurdity of our sudden celebrity. After dinner, we stepped back out to find the paparazzi still there. They called out questions, some inquiring about the senator's reaction, others about my magazine's stance. Harper squeezed my hand, and we walked away together, ignoring the hail of noise. Later that week, the media attention began shifting to another scandal, as it always does. My magazine published a small Q&A with me about the Tribeca event, just enough to satisfy curiosity, but not enough to stoke more flames. Harper's father released a measured statement that he loved his daughter unconditionally, a minor miracle for a man so guarded in his political image. One evening, Harper and I were in my apartment again, curled up on the couch. The windows were open, letting in the hum of traffic and a breeze that smelled faintly of summer. She flipped through a newspaper, glancing at a short blurb about us. "They called it a shocking display of affection," she read, rolling her eyes. "Shocking my ass. We just kissed." I snorted, tucking my legs beneath me. That's the nature of tabloids. Everything is a shock or a scandal. She tossed the paper aside. "Well, let them write their headlines. I'm done letting them scare me." I studied her face, recalling how many times she'd retreated in the past. Now she seemed steadier, more at peace. "So what now?" I asked. "What happens next for us?" She reached over, lacing her fingers through mine. Her answer was simple but carried the weight of all we'd been through. "Now we stop pretending." I smiled, tears prickling at the corners of my eyes. Because that's exactly what I needed. To no longer hide or pretend. To stand beside someone who might shake my world, but never let it crumble. She pulled me in for a gentle kiss, and the city's cacophony seemed to soften. Beyond the windows, neon lights reflected on the building across the street, flickering like a pulse in the night. For once, I didn't feel lonely in the midst of the thousands of people around us. I felt whole. It's been a few weeks since that night on the rooftop. The hype died down, replaced by another scandal, another headline. Harper and I are still together, figuring out the nuances of a relationship that was forged in secrecy but now stands in the public eye. Her father's staff glowers at me during events, but they haven't outright condemned us. My magazine keeps me busy with new assignments, and the internal gossip about my personal life has mostly dissipated. Sometimes, I catch myself waiting for the other shoe to drop, half expecting a crisis to tear us apart. But each time fear creeps in, Harper is there, reminding me that we chose this path, that we found something real in a city famed for its illusions. We're not perfect. We argue about small things, like how often we can see each other given our schedules. We disagree about her father's occasional interference. But we talk, and more importantly, we listen. That's how I know we're going to be okay. Because the city that once made me feel alone now feels full of possibility. I see it in the glimmer of streetlights on wet pavement, in the hum of late-night taxis, in the quiet moments when Harper rests her head on my shoulder and breathes in time with mine. I used to hide so much. My desires, my doubts, my vulnerabilities. No more. Sometimes all it takes is one person, one moment, to shatter a lifetime of pretense. And Have you ever found the courage to stop pretending,